Welcome to the Nature Photo Guys podcast,
where we talk about nature photography, from gear to our philosophies and everything in between.
So grab a cup of coffee, sit back and relax.
You're listening to Joe Desjardins
and Chris Gibbs, the Nature Photo Guys.
Well, Chris, welcome back to season 2.
Yeah,
kind of excited to get back here. I know we did that funny little intro video when we were out.
Everybody loved
Kananaskis there.
Moose gears.
Oh, and you flying in like an eagle.
Yes. I heard about that a little, maybe too much, unfortunately.
If only everybody saw what you did before that.
Yeah. I'm glad you made me redo the eagle soaring instead of fluttering in.
That was, oh my God, that was hilarious.
We'll maybe see that.
But we got it maybe for
one day.
For blooper reel, exactly,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So
no, hey, it's good to get back. Good to start chatting again. Last year was a lot of technical kind of intro, photo techniques and all this kind of stuff. But I think today we're going to talk about our earlier influences.
That's right.
As far as getting into photography and primarily nature photography. Because back in the day when I started in the studio and that kind of thing, I wasn't all that much into nature photography. I mean, I did a little bit, but it wasn't until later on that I really got into the nature photography.
Sure, it was more portraits and stuff like that, I guess,
And portraits, studio, commercial, like all that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
Stuff that you'd basically set up and do in the studio, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was there when the transition was made from studio to 35 millimeter outside. Basically, like the transition from, a studio wedding to a photojournalistic style wedding with 35 millimeters. Right?
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah.
So I've seen, that's kind of where I was at as far as the photography generation wise, right? So
oh man, you're old. Anyway,
hey, we'll see. Nice and white.
I'm so much younger than you too.
Yeah, you're 50 what, 53?
I think we're only a few years apart, that's for sure. So
yeah
well, that must have been a different time for sure. So it's a lot of the younger folk probably can't even imagine what it would have been like at that point for sure. But
well, think about it. Manual focus.
Yeah.
Slide film.
Sure.
Like you didn't get that. I mean, you didn't have 10 frames per second. You had 1 frame per second. I mean, I remember the old day having a power winder on the bottom of the Canon A1, right? And just like battery operated. So the minute you clicked, they went.
Oh, nice.
And then, so all it did was advance the frame instead of going a couple of clicks to the right, So it was definitely a different time.
Yes.
But I just wanted to mention some of the guys that actually kind of were my influences, back in the day.
Sounds
good. And what kind of really got me pumped about it. So
sounds like of nature photography. So basically
nature, primarily nature. Yeah. So wildlife, landscape, macro, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Sounds good.
So I'll get into it. The first guy I really started to follow and got some of his books was John Shaw.
Okay.
So, I mean, I still have his stuff here, I still have his books, but man, back in the day, he was like a legend, right?
Oh, yeah.
This book here is dating back to, I think this one's like 84, 85. This was 84. Not that I bought it in 84, but
no, fair enough.
This one's going back to 84.
Was he specifically a wildlife photographer, or he did landscapes
nature
and all that too? Just nature and
landscapes, macro, nature in general. Okay. Yeah, you betcha. And I see some of the stuff in here, and just to know that it was all shot on slide film just kind of blows your mind. Because I mean, back in the day, you had to know exposure.
Right.
If you didn't know exposure, especially with slide film, you were done, because slide film was pretty much what you see is what you get.
Okay.
Right. It wasn't like shooting print film where, you could be off by a stop and a half or two and they just fix it in the lab. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So in this case here, this was pretty, I think, most of it was shot on slide. Like he's saying, like Kodachrome 64,
okay.
Kodachrome 25, And again, these numbers 64 and 25 are basically film speed, or like ISO in today's, digital cameras. So can you imagine shooting an ISO 25
Wow. Yeah. No kidding.
or 64, But
No kidding.
the other thing you got to remember too is, for a lot of this slower film stuff, like this slower slide film,
Yep.
it was static subjects,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
right? So it was
No
landscapes and
action or
macro,
anything.
and yeah. So
Yeah.
it wasn't really, you know, um, needed. High speed wasn't really needed because there wasn't a whole lot of movement.
Okay.
But then I'm just taking a look at these two moose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And listen to the specs here. Listen to
Oh no.
the settings.
Okay.
Kodachrome 64
Okay.
at 400, right?
Okay.
1/15 of a second at 3.5.
Oh, wow.
1/15 of a second. Like, what the hell? So obviously the moose didn't move, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that image super
it-
sharp? Obviously, that you're looking at.
Oh,
too,
it is.
right? Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Wow.
So
1/15.
1/15. So yeah, he was definitely, a huge influence in the beginning. Now, a lot of his stuff he talks about was still relevant today.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Photography
Yeah.
in general, and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Composition.
And they're talking about composition, rule of thirds, all this kind of stuff, right? I mean, it's still really relevant, right? So
I'm assuming at 1/15 of a second, you don't see too many birds in flight in that book.
no, you don't. No, actually, here's a bird right here. This one was Kodachrome 64, 1/500th of a second, but a lot of light, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
of course. So this was one of them, Nature Photographer's Complete Guide to Professional Field Techniques, right?
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one was really a favorite of mine, and this is a close-up in nature.
Oh,
so this is basically a macro book.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, guys, like, this stuff is still relevant. Like, don't think just because this book's 20 years old that you're not going to learn from it. That's why I still have them. It's nice just to go back and take a look and get an eye for certain subjects, and
technology changes over the years, but the composition, your techniques as a photographer doesn't change, right? So
no, it's still composition, lights. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we talked about this before, you can give a professional camera system to an amateur that's just starting out, and a camera system just off the shelf to a professional, and the images will still be night and day.
Yes.
Right. It's just the camera doesn't make the photographer, right? I mean, it obviously helps with getting more images, sharpness, quality of the image. There's certain looks and feel, when you're shooting a prime versus like say a lower end zoom, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as, your eye, right?
Yep.
Like the light composition, all this kind of stuff, like how it all
understanding
blends in,
framing techniques and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, exactly.
Leading lines and I mean, behavior and everything, right? So
for sure. Yeah. Agreed.
Another one of his was Focus on Nature, right?
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Another one of his good books. And then this one was like over the top. I mean, because there wasn't too many books like this. And it was called The Business of Nature Photography.
Oh, that would have been, a rare book back in those days. For
sure. Back then, right? So, it had everything here from, setting up a work environment, investing in a computer back then, right? Shooting subjects that sell, right? How to organize, file, and store your slides.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Stock agencies.
That would have been big time information that not very many people had back then, I would think. People would have been clamoring for that book, right?
Well, yeah, because, they even had, editing, captioning, and copywriting your images, sending out submissions, signing up with a stock agency, developing, saleable magazine articles. And, this is all stuff that, like, John Marriott back in the day, Darwin Wiggett, all these guys were doing anyways, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Like, they knew this system because back then, they did slide film, they shot all this stuff, right? Exactly. So this book here, and who knows, maybe, this was one of their books too, growing up, right? But
Fair
yeah,
enough.
this is one of my favorite guys growing up. Well, one of them. I'm going to mention 3 or 4 here, but
Sure.
if you guys are looking to go to the used bookstores, bargain bins and stuff like that. If you see John Shaw, I would definitely
Nice.
recommend.
What was he, Canadian,
some of his
Joe, or
stuff.
was he North
No, he was out
American?
of the U.S.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he was American. Let's
Okay.
let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay. And like that's what I mean. I still keep all the books. Like it's
Yeah.
just these things are so good, right? The other guy was Tim Fitzharris.
Okay.
Okay. He was another nature guy. So John Shaw was like earlier. This guy was coming up in around I was reading his stuff like mid 90s.
Okay.
This was late 80s, early 90s for Shaw. And then this was like mid to late 90s sort of thing, right?
Sure.
For
Yep.
me, anyways.
Yep.
So this was nature photography. Digital edition, over 200 new photos. The Audubon Society's Guide to Nature Photography, right? Okay.
Nice. Yeah.
And again, a lot of his stuff, was all done all on slide film, everything from composition, picture design, all this kind of stuff, right?
Sure. Yeah.
The Equinox Guide to 35 millimeter landscape photography. So this one was landscape specific, right?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But
I'm just reading the back here actually, and it says, he so far he was an author of 11 books on nature, and he was a regular writer for Outdoor Photographer magazine.
Cool.
Which was a magazine I got monthly for years.
Yep.
Like the stacks I had were like in the hundreds, right?
Right.
He's out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. So
Okay. Yeah.
That's. But can you tell me where the cover image is from?
Is that, I can't tell from there. Is that Yosemite? No.
Looks
like Red Rock.
Canada.
Is it in Canada? Oh.
Yeah.
Bad me. I can't tell from there. No.
Jasper National Park.
Oh, is it Jasper? Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Nice.
So that was kind of cool that, he traveled up this way to, take some cool photos. Anyways, pretty cool. Pretty cool. That was the Equinox Guide. Then there was a wild bird photography, right?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And, he did a lot of stuff for the Audubon Society, right? National Audubon Society. So
Okay. Yep.
a lot of his books. And then again, he had a close-up in nature photography book.
Oh, he did. Okay.
So, and, I found a lot of the stuff was the same with Shaw and, with everybody, right? Because a lot of the techniques and stuff, well, they are the same, right? You can only get so far where, you run into the same things. Like it's, macro lens is a macro lens, using extension tubes, using a bellows, using diopters, using certain flash setups, using, it's all the same, but, just showing maybe something slightly different as far as, lighting goes or composition or something like that. So
some of these guys may shoot a little bit to the one side or whatever. They may have different techniques that they have, patterned off of their own style, right? And
yeah, for sure. So, okay. So this one was 1998. Okay.
Yep.
And when this book was published, he was up to 18 books.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
So he's got and I only have about a half a dozen books from each of these guys. Right.
Okay.
So I'd be really curious to see like, where his other, what his other 12 books are on. Right.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
But pretty cool.
More by now.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I've got a lot of photography books that I'm just looking at my shelf here.
Yeah.
That I've just collected and kept.
So to me, one thing about keeping those old books, from the professionals years ago, it kind of, if you're looking for inspiration, you can open them up, see some of those images, the composition, it just gets your mind moving.
Oh, for sure. And, the best part of it is, you get to see the not only the image, right? I mean, because you can go on the Google Images and look at pictures and like, oh, okay, yeah, I can try some of this. But it'll actually it'll show a picture of the lens with the extension tube. And it's like, okay, yeah, I haven't tried extension tubes in a while, or I've never tried extension tubes. And here I just flipped to another page with a flash setup and this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing cool about these old books too is you can still buy a lot of this inexpensive lenses.
Oh, yep.
And gear, right?
Sure.
And you can adapt them to these, to these DSLRs now, right?
That's right. Yeah. They might be
Like
all
with
manual,
reverse
but
rings
yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can, these reverse rings or, there's these adapters that you can actually stack lenses and all kinds of
Sure.
things, right?
Yeah.
So you can have a lot of fun with it. So that may even bring in more inspiration by,
True.
going back and looking
Trying
at these
something
books,
out of the
right?
box a
So
little bit. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, for sure. So those were the two big ones.
Okay.
The third big one, and I really got into this guy like 2010.
Okay.
I bought his book soon as it came out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's Moose Peterson.
Oh, okay.
So it's called Captured, Lessons from Behind the Lens of a Legendary Wildlife Photographer.
Nice.
And this to me was kind of the Bible back then when it came to wildlife, right?
Cool. Yeah.
I mean, it had anything and everything. Like, I mean, like I'm just seeing pikas, bears, talks about behavior. It talks about, there's polar bears. There's anything and
wow.
everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's like field notes, right? So it was really good. I mean, if there was one book I would suggest, and, you try and find,
Sure.
as kind of like one of the Bibles right now, it would be Captured.
It's almost like a nature encyclopedia kind of thing. Everything, all the information about it, one kind of thing.
Legendary, this guy, like just, right from back in the day. This book was, it's kind of beat up. It's some torn edges and
well used though, right?
It was something that was I read and reread quite a bit. Actually, with this book here, back in the day, 2010, I paid $67 Canadian for this book. Yeah, and that was unheard of for a book back then.
Yes, no, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It was $55 US.
It's almost like a reference manual in a way, like
it is.
Yeah.
But actually, one of the things I remember from him is with this was to increase his stock sales. Okay, when he was shooting film, because most of it, like he was one of those hardcore, didn't want to go to digital right away, right?
Okay, yeah.
He taught me that, back in the stock photo sales days, he said images of wildlife that were on the warmer side sold a lot better than the ones based off of, like, say, a normal daylight exposure. Okay, so he would have a warming filter attached to his lens 100% of the time when he shot wildlife.
That's
because just that added little, and not a very strong one, but just enough to take the coolness off the photo.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. And he said that made a huge difference as far as selling his stock photos.
Isn't that well? He would know if he's got as many as he probably did. He would know. He would have the analytics back then to determine that as well, right?
So, I'm sure his library is up into the hundreds of thousands of stock images, right? Like it's just one of those things, right? But
he would know.
But he is the first one I learned that technique from him.
Nice,
right? So
that's
I mean, I learned a lot from all these guys, but that was one of them. So Moose Peterson, he's the man. So.
Oh, very cool. Well, looking at this stuff, you actually, you're looking through it, you learn a lot actually, right? You just going through that, flipping different techniques, like we've said, just looking at the images, looking how people are composing different shots. You learn from that too, right? So even if you're early on looking at this stuff, you sure get an idea of the best way to shoot, what looks good to you and, to your eye.
Well, he was a big proponent of using flash too.
Oh, he was with wildlife.
Flash and wildlife.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was very good at balancing flash and everything else. And, he used teleconverters religiously too,
Okay. Yeah.
on his old D3s, D4 Nikons, that kind of stuff. Right.
Yep.
I just remember he's a big Nikon guy for sure.
Okay.
So,
very
but
cool.
Mr. Moose Peterson, and the last one I'm going to just touch base on really quick is, I think everybody's heard of this guy too, and that's George Lepp.
Okay. Yep.
So, again, this was in the 2010s. I think it was. I think this book was published early 2010 here, just to give you an idea. Oh, look at me go, 2010. So again, just a different point of view, right? He sees differently than everybody else does, right? Yep. How he got the image, well, here's a subject: thoughts on photographing captive animals.
Okay.
a little bit of history, some natural history in here. I think he's more behavior based, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So he's talking about specific animals, not so much techniques,
Okay. Yeah.
there's some techniques in here, but, a lot of
Sure.
that had to do with, a lot of his stuff has to do with behavior. So
which is a
shooting
huge
from a blind and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, which is a hugely important in nature photography as well, right? Understanding behavior and
yeah, for sure. And once I get through these two books that I'm currently reading, I'll give a bit of review on that. And one is on tracking, and the other one's on behavior. So we'll throw those up in an episode coming up too, just so everybody can kind of see see what I'm reading, but see where I get a lot of my information from. I mean, and don't get me wrong, it's easy enough to just get on Google and, start researching animal behavior and all this kind of stuff. But I'm still like a tactile kind of book, paper, flipping pages, bookmarking, that kind of stuff, right?
But you also got to be careful with Google, because some things out there are inaccurate and, as well.
Oh, they are. Oh, they can be, right? For sure. And I mean, the other thing too is, I just take my camera and take a picture of a page, or like if I need to bring information with me or whatever, like,
bit of a reference.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'm going to leave it with those four guys.
Okay.
If you guys ever find any of that kind of stuff out there, at the bookstores, or even online, I'm sure there's a lot of this stuff used out there, but certainly inspirational and kind of where I got started as far as nature photography goes. So.
Nice. Very good. Yeah. And if anybody has any other photographers to throw out there, we'd love to hear them, because we're always interested.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a long list that we're going to talk about coming up.
Yes.
But these were kind of my earlier influences, right? Like this is, before we knew a lot of the locals, a lot of the, the big names right now, right?
Exactly.
Really, they weren't around back then.
No.
No. Like a lot of these guys were being published when I was like 14, 15 years old, right?
A long time ago. Yes.
A long time ago. Yeah. Yeah. They used to use those glass plates, No, anyways. Yeah. So, anyways, I just, I think it's, episode's a little different, touching on some books, letting people know.
Oh, it's great understanding exactly how you got into it and where you came from and who you kind of looked at to build inspiration in the past, right? To get to where you are today.
Yeah. And then maybe in the next episode, what we'll do, Chris, is we'll touch on maybe some early photography or video influences for you.
Sure.
Just to keep this episode not too long, right? And then, because I know you've been involved in video like 20 plus years, right?
Yeah, a long time for sure. Yeah, here and there.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And
photography really the last 10 years kind of thing. So my influences in photography are more, I guess, since 2010, I guess, right? From that book that you just showed to today's, right? So there's lots of interesting guys and girls as well that we'll be talking about for sure going forward. So
I think we'll just leave it at that. And, in future episodes, we'll, start sharing, a few more photographers as we go along, and, help the audience out there, find and follow some, some more inspirational photogrophers. And,
there's lots of them out there. That's for sure. So
there is a lot of them out there, Chris. So, but we'll take our time and introduce a few as we go, and maybe that'll one will mesh with you, one will stay with you and really help you along. So I think that's it, Chris?
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan. That was a good episode, and great to hear your early influences there, Joe.
Thanks guys for watching / listen, and we'll catch you next time on the Nature Photo Guys podcast.
And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us on the Nature Photo Guys podcast. If you have any questions, contact us at info@thenaturephotoguys.ca or message us on Facebook and Instagram at the Nature Photo Guys Podcast. Visit YouTube and subscribe to our channel to watch all our latest videos, or follow and listen to our latest podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on our website at thenaturephotoguys.ca. We'll catch you next time on the Nature Photo Guys Podcast.